know.
Did you know that your Sagicor advisor can help you plan how to make your golden years your best years? Call a Sagicor agent today.
I had a really good time tonight.
So did I.
Life moves fast. Be prepared with Sagicor. Learn more at sagicorlife.com.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Matters. Our guest this morning holds an Associates of Arts in Psychology from Santa Fe Community College, a Bachelor's of Arts in Psychology, and a Master's in Mental Health and Rehabilitation Counseling, both from the University of South Florida. She has been a PR communication officer, a general manager, director of counseling, psychology lecturer, and has been in private practice offering counseling and consultation since August 2013. She helps teens, adults, and elderly deal with anxiety, depression, relationship conflicts, sexual abuse recovery, life skills, amongst other things. Present and former clients describe her style as genuine, direct, and disarming. Christa, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for agreeing to come. I think that in times like these, especially in times like these, people like you are most important to our society. But you are the kind of people that, to a great degree, go unnoticed, and some people feel that they can't reach you. So I am grateful that you have found the time to come out here and, by extension, reach some people, because the ones that think they can't reach you, they can reach you through this medium. So again, I say thank you.
It's my pleasure.
So while we know that you're a counselor, we want to see a little bit more of who you are. Where did you grow up? What was your life like? Because I think in all of that, there's also some level of hope for people that are tuning in, so they know that they too can do great things regardless of where or how they grew up. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Did you have siblings? And where did you grow up?
Okay, sure. I'm originally from Florida. I do have one brother who's younger than me, but bigger than me. So we argue about who's the older sister or the bigger brother. And I will say that a lot of who I am now very much shaped by a couple childhood experiences. One in particular, I think I was about 12, 13, when my dad, who was a paramedic, was stuck by a dirty needle during his job and contracted hepatitis B, which at the time there were no cures for. There was medication for hepatitis C. There were some things you could do for hepatitis A, but hepatitis B, basically there was nothing they could do. So he ended up being one of the people that they tested the first liver transplants on at one of a university hospital in Pittsburgh. But that then shaped, I would say, my teenage years, because he was medically dealing with a lot of recovery and ups and downs and depression on his own. The family then went down to a one-person income, which was my mom, and a few other things. But that kind of, I think, shaped my desire to help people. And for the longest, I said I wanted to help people, but I was never sure how and in what capacity. So it went from being a nurse to being a travel agent, because I liked learning about new people and new things. And I thought maybe that would give me the opportunity to do that. And my first year at junior college, I had to take a general psychology class as part of the liberal arts platform there. And I was hooked. It's like something clicked, that this is it. This is for me. I changed my major and went straight through associates, bachelor's, and straight through then to my master's program.
Wow. You see the people and you don't know their story. You don't know. You answered so many of my questions by saying what you just said. But tell me a little bit about the personality of your mother.
Of my mom? My mom grew up too with an alcoholic father. Her mom then separated. They got remarried to someone who was much better to them, a much healthier situation. But growing up with my mom, she is a problem solver. She's creative. things that I don't necessarily think I am. I mean, I solve problems now, but in a very different way than she does. She's very hands-on. If there's a tree in her way, she'll go and get the chainsaw and cut it down herself. Nothing ever really stopped her from doing what she wanted to do. And so I guess, I mean, I saw that more when my dad got sick, and she had to kind of do a lot for us and for him. But she was easy to talk to for the most part. And just really figured out ways to get things done and how to have fun in the process.
Who would you say taught you the biggest lesson, your mom or your dad?
Wow. That's tough. Because I think I learned important big lessons, I think, from both of them. I do think, though, that my personality probably is more shaped after my dad, who was a very loving person, long-suffering, forgiving, always tried whenever he was around new people to make sure that they felt comfortable and included. Anybody that you talked to who had ever met my dad thought the world of him, both in his profession, which before he was a paramedic, he was a community health worker. And so anybody who met him, just easy to get along with, easy to talk to, but really showed a lot of compassion and care for people and their well-being. And so I think naturally I may have picked up a few of those things from him, but then a bit of my grit and not willing to give up easily on things that I believe in, I think was shaped a lot by my mom as well.
Were you at some point in time a caregiver for your father, considering that the household was made up of 4 people and your mom was at work trying to put bread on the table? And what was that experience like?
We did. My brother and I took on caregiving roles with my dad. Fortunately, he was able to do quite a bit for himself. He wasn't bedridden. So we did have him around and interacted with him and took care of him. There were, over the years, times where he was in the hospital for weeks at a time and then would, recover and do okay. And so we did take on some care, but to me, it came naturally. And my brother as well. I mean, my brother is very, he's big on family and has a huge commitment to family and feels a sense of obligation. So when there's a need, he expects himself and the rest of us to be there. But it was difficult. I mean, don't get me wrong. We were afraid a lot, not knowing every time my dad went into the hospital, if this would be the last time. There were a couple close calls over the years, but my dad seemed to make it through. So I think in the process, though, my brother and I got much closer in sort of that common goal in the house. But we talked a lot. We shared a lot. We had a large support system as well outside of the home. So our family, our faith community, we had a lot of support.
Well, good. It seemed that like you said, a big portion of your life prepared you for the person that you are today. It's kind of like just the natural next step.
I want to know how you ended up from Florida to Belize. While it's very close proximity, nothing you have said so far puts them together for me.
Right. Let's see. I didn't know I'd be asked this question, but I'll tell my version of the story.
I like it.
I actually met who is now my husband at university. I was in my master's program, and he was there studying, I believe, for his bachelor's at the time. We met in a computer lab. I had actually, before I met him, had a class. One of my classes, I met a girl from Belize. And I think, again, the fact that I had traveled a bit before I went to university. I was very excited about meeting new people, learning about cultures, etc. So when I met her, I wanted to know more. So we started talking, became friends, study friends during that particular class. And I actually learned what her accent sounded like. And because of my involvement previously in university with international cultural organizations, even the Black Student Union, I was the secretary for a while. I met my husband, and he was speaking to me in the computer lab, and I heard his accent, and it sounded like the same rhythm. And so I asked him, "Are you from Belize?" And he was, of course, very shocked, because he told me that up until then, most people said, "Hey, where are you from?" And when he said Belize, they said, "Where's that?" That was the common introduction he would get. So when I tagged him, he, looked back, "What?" Like, how do you know that? It started a conversation, and there's a little more to that story. But eventually, time and, the timing and conversations and everything led to what I know now, or can look back and see, was inevitable, that we ended up then getting married. And I made the choice to begin our lives here in Belize. I just felt like this is where I should have been. And so I came here, which he was very relieved about.
Well, I would imagine that would be a relief for anybody that's interested in somebody. So now you are here and you've decided to stay and to practice here. You could practice anywhere in the world. Why did you, besides your husband and besides the fact that you have your family, because even so, you could move your family to anywhere in the world. What make you say every day that this is where I, Mrs. Courtenay, need to be?
There's a couple things I will say. One, when I decided to come to Belize, I was coming and I was committed to my marriage. His family is here. At the time, his parents were elderly, and I recognized the importance of being close by. And I wanted to get to know, I'm excited by new cultures and new places. So, to have my family need to make that obligatory trip to Belize once a year, they were pretty excited about having somewhere to go as well. But honestly, my attitude when I came was to put down roots, embrace whatever Belize had to offer, and get to know where my space would be in this new place. My husband is very dedicated, I think, and very patriotic, cares a lot about the country and where we've been and where we're going. So his roots here are extremely deep and strong. And so that, was a consideration too. But I also felt like, and in the beginning, I made it a point not to practice counseling, actually. I took about 5 years before I got back into counseling here, because I felt like I needed to really understand what the resources were, what they weren't, what are the opportunities, what are the limitations, so that anything that I would offer would be relevant, and of course, accessible to people. So learning the Creole, learning the food, learning, visiting all the districts and getting a feel for the very differences in culture just from district to district. All of that was not only exciting for me, but part of the research I felt like I needed to do in order to be useful here.
Well, when I was reading your bio and I realized that you did all these other jobs, I was thinking, why didn't you just come and jump in? But now that you've said this, it makes perfect sense. You are now better able to understand the people and to meet their needs in a different way. I was going to ask you if your degree prepared you for the change in diversity and the culture, and that did it help that you had a degree in psychology?
I would say yes, but I would say there's so much about how I grew up that I think prepared me for this as well. The church and the school that I went to, I was the minority. I wasn't in the majority in those two environments. My brother and I actually were the only white students at the school. And the ministry, the church that we did a lot of community outreach. And so I got to know a lot of people from a lot of different places. We traveled a lot with the church in summers. And so I was exposed not only to the faith-based part of it, that is very compassionate and inclusive, but also to a lot of different types of people from a very young age. And so we worked in prisons, we worked in inner cities, we worked in boot camps. So we were I was exposed to a lot. And then, of course, I worked in a couple different places before I came to Belize also that prepared me, I think, to just be flexible and to meet people where they are and not focus so much on what I'm bringing to the table, but I can know all that I know, but not know how to communicate it to somebody in their own language, at their own level of understanding. And it's of no use if I can't translate it.
Well, it says on your LinkedIn profile that you try to accomplish 4 primary goals. That sounds like you've just described one of the goals.
One of them is to identify and release restrictive pattern, to increase self-awareness, to foster empowerment, and to inspire positive change. You want to talk a little bit about that, please?
Sure. I kind of go into each engagement with a client trying to understand actually a lot before I try to influence. I want to get to know a person. I want to build trust. And so with that comes all that I've been prepared for, which is to release judgment, to understand that there's a lot of different things that drive people, but mostly to communicate and help people become aware of the cycles and patterns that are active in their lives. And so understanding that we are who we are because of so many different things that shape us, some that we're accustomed to or aware of, and some that we're not. And so we can have patterns active in our lives that are guiding our choices, that are shaping the options that we see, and not even realize that we're being restricted simply by not being aware. And so part of counseling is really raising awareness. It's not fixing what people say are crazy. It's not anything that we do to you, but it's more of a partnership where I learn from you and you learn from me, and we sort out what works and what doesn't work, and we're both better for it.
I like that you say that, because a lot of people that have never experienced counseling, and especially in our society, are afraid that you are going to come and tell me what to do. I don't want you to tell me what to do. I don't want them to come and fix me because I'm not working. These are some of the things that hold the people back from entering offices like your own. So when you say that, I think you have disarmed a lot of people. Now, in the next segment, they will sit down and they will listen. We're going to take a break and be back.
Did you know that it's best to keep the lumber stored in a dry place?
At KT Enterprises, all our wood is stored in an enclosed space to provide our clients with the highest quality.
We allow you to personally select your lumber if you choose, and we deliver countrywide.
Be it deckboard, beams, and imported hardwoods such as red oak and white ash. At KT Enterprises, we provide you with the highest grade in treated pine, construction grade plywood, and imported hardwood, delivered to your door.
We continue to build Belize by reforesting its pine forest. Visit us today at 2.3 miles Iguana Creek Road, or give us a call at 671-0114 or 672-0114.
At NextGen, we work for you. Because despite you not being able to be together, we can keep you connected, united, talking to each other, seeing each other, communicating with each other. Stay connected with NextGen.
NextGen, powered by Central TV and Internet.
New
New Buildings Limited is the company of choice when it comes to design, fabricating and erection of wide-span metal buildings in Belize. At New Buildings, we have a team of well-trained professionals that can produce the most innovative and durable metal structures. Be it domestic or industrial buildings, we can get it done for you. We have put together some of the most outstanding metal structures in the country. We also do estimates and consulting. Visit New Buildings in Spanish Lookout or give them a call at 631-8723 or 610-5185. New Buildings Limited, the experts when it comes to metal structures in Belize.
Here at Coop Sheet Metal, we believe our job is very essential in serving our customers. And that is just one reason why visiting us is an experience to be remembered.
Here at Coop Sheet Metal, we have a reliable fleet of trucks. We specialize in countrywide delivery of all our material.
Coop Sheet Metal is a family business that was started by my grandfather, who even had many of his machines hand-built decades ago to make our products the most reliable in Belize. Come visit us at our new facility on Iguana Creek Road, just past the Belize River leading to Spanish Lookout.
I choose Happy Cow cheese because of its perfect portion sizes, and I can travel with it.
Because it's nice and soft and creamy, and it goes smooth on your bread.
I choose Happy Cow cheese because I eat it with my beans. I eat it with my fried jack. And you know why? Because it's nice.
Most of all, when you're on plane, you know they only give you some crackers, and you could just take one out and enjoy it with Happy Cow cheese.
I'm Miss Baker, and I choose Happy Cow cheese because it goes well with all the stuff I bake.
Happy Cow cheese. Look for it in a store near you. Distributed in Belize exclusively by Emilio Ahmad and Sons Limited.
Welcome back to Morning Matters. Mrs. Courtenay in with us this morning. Mrs. Courtenay, welcome back.
Thank you.
Well, good. Now that we have all that background on you, I feel like we can sit down more comfortable, like the people that were thinking, oh, she's just going to tell us. No, we can all learn from each other, like you say. In this segment, we hope to learn from you. And in learning from you, we hope to learn more about ourselves.
So hopefully this will allow us to get there. This is a time when people are in heavy confinement. They have that kind of confinement. They have the stresses of finances. They have the stresses of the uncertainty of the where their next, if they're going to keep this job that they have. They have so much stress going on right now. Do you think that this is a time when people that have mental issues, theirs will flare up, and for the ones that did not recognize that they had before, they will it's going to start to happen to some degree? And if this is the case, what can they do to assist themselves?
Okay. I will answer the first question because it's pretty easy to answer. Anyone with pre-existing mental health issues or difficulties or injuries for that, so with a diagnosable mental illness, whatever it is, stress and uncertainty absolutely can be very big triggers, because people who struggle already day to day with mental illness, no matter what it is, generally have a pretty rigorous self-care system that they have to have in place every day. So many people rely on routine, even if it's not too strict. There's generally things that they do in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. There's a process of evaluation in terms of recognizing signs or symptoms, identifying triggers. Like, there's a lot of attention that anybody with a mental illness who's managing it, there's a lot of energy that goes into keeping themselves stabilized as much as possible. For some, it's medication, etc. So any extreme stress or uncertainty can definitely be a trigger. Now, it doesn't mean that everyone who has mental illness is going to freak out. But even people without mental illness are freaking out. It's a human thing to freak out when every system and your income. I mean, so many of the human priorities, safety, food security, shelter, health, when so many of those are being threatened right now, potentially, it's very normal to not feel good about that. So certainly people with pre-existing conditions can be aggravated and be under a lot more stress and find it more difficult to manage that mood on a daily basis. So they do have to rely more heavily on whatever their coping strategies are that they've learned, and maybe even pick up a few more. For people who don't have something pre-existing, as I mentioned before, what we're going through right now is more of a human crisis. And when you think about it, there is no health, as they say, without mental health, right? Mental health is just another part of the spectrum. You can think about heart health. You think about brain cells and health. You think about lung health. You think about all the different organs that require attention. If somebody has cholesterol in their family, if somebody has high blood pressure, these are all things then that people in that family line have to be concerned about. And so sometimes you can address it with diet, sometimes you can address it with a combination of diet and exercise, and sometimes you need medication in order to manage those chronic illnesses. Mental health is the same thing. It's just that people are a lot less familiar with it and don't know how to have conversations about it without feeling threatened or vulnerable. So how I am mentally or emotionally is very much shaped by what stresses me out, what solutions or options I see, how I cope with pressure and fear mostly. And so for someone who is experiencing difficulties in the area of emotional or mental health or stability or calm or whatever, it's just as natural to talk to a counselor about what can I do to feel better as it is to talk to your cardiologist about how can I keep my heart healthy and not have a heart attack. I mean, it should be just as easy to make the transition. If I'm struggling emotionally, if I'm scared, if I'm having trouble sleeping, my appetite is changing or fluctuating, I'm moody, I can't keep relationships, I'm finding it difficult to focus, those are all reasons to talk to somebody just to find out if there's maybe two little things you can do or there's a bigger problem that requires a little more assistance.
I cite the fact that the culture has a lot to do with that. Like you say, it's so easy. There is stigma and discrimination
associated with that through ignorance. And I think conversations like these will open up the conversations for them, simply because if I am somebody and I may be going through something in my mind, or I may notice that somebody in my family or one of my friends are having difficulty, how do I approach it without offending them?
That's kind of tricky, but there are a couple things that you can do that give you a higher chance of being successful with that. Nothing is 100%. But one of the things is anytime you're going to confront someone pretty much about anything, it's to start off with a caring comment. You know, I really care about you. We've been close for a long time. You know, I'm here for you. And then kind of move into specific observations. So I don't want to make judgments about a person, you know, you to act crazy, or you just, you know, you to go on bad, or you like bite off everybody's head. Like, we don't want it to sound like an accusation or an attack. So one of the ways you can remove the attack and the threat from a comment is to start with observation. You know, I've noticed that you are a little more short-tempered lately, or I noticed that you don't seem to be sleeping as well, or I noticed that you're not eating like you used to, your appetite. So try to make specific observations about behaviors. And so I'm not accusing you of being sick or depressed or anxious. I'm just noticing and observing the behaviors. It's a little less threatening when you come to me with data rather than your opinion or your judgment about that data. And so a loving comment to remind somebody that you're there for them, and then bringing out specific observations of behavior, and then asking if there's something more going on or is there anything I can do to help. And if that opens up the conversation, then it's okay to say, well, maybe you can consider talking to someone, or let's look it up together, or I'm happy to go with you to your first appointment if you like, or help you to set it up. And so you want to remove as many barriers as you can to someone maybe accessing then more help if you feel that that's necessary.
You've made some observations or some things that people can spot, but can you share with us some more examples of things that people should look for? If they're looking, they might have a child that spends a lot of time in their room, or they might have a husband or a wife that comes home and is not as conversational as they used to be before, or even more conversational. What are some of the things that people can look for in order to help?
Okay. Very easily, something that people can kind of do, you want to look for major changes in behavior. So if you had someone who was bubbly, outgoing, always happy, and now they seem to be more reclusive, they're quiet, isolating a bit more, they don't seem like themselves, even if you can't pinpoint it, it's okay to ask in or to say something. Oftentimes, we don't want the person to be offended. We don't want them to think that we're da-da-da-da-da, or we don't want to upset them. So we don't say anything. I would rather say something and have you pissed off at me and we're able to make up in a week than for me not to say something and you needed me. And that is sometimes what people go through after a loved one or someone has taken their life. Something felt funny, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't want to upset somebody. We're afraid to bring these things up. And it's natural to be afraid, because if we bring them up, we don't always know how to handle it. But I think sometimes it's a little better to bring it up and figure it out on the back end than not to say anything and to be quiet. Sometimes the silence is what allows these things to go deeper and continue longer than we'd like. So mainly people can look for shifts in behavior. If you had somebody that used to eat very healthily, or their sleep schedule was pretty steady, or maybe it wasn't steady and now they're sleeping too much, any major change in behavior is worth asking in about in a very compassionate way.
What about families? Right now, this is a time when if somebody dies for you, you're not allowed the usual grieving process. And I think that this is
creating additional problems for the people that have experienced it. How can those families better cope in this position?
I will say that, and hopefully this validates some people's emotions or positions. Just the funeral service alone and the burial ground is designed to be the commencement of grief. It's the signal of an end, but it's also the beginning of the grief process. And so being denied that opportunity can frustrate or complicate grief. Now, grief on its own is a topic that would maybe warrant a whole show, because there's a lot of things that go into it, but there's a lot of information online about grief. And one of the things that I advocate for often, I say things like, who you are as a part of your relationships. So if you're a mom or a wife in my position, you're a friend, who I am in my relationships and my job, I think as a parent, if I'm a parent, are the two most important functions in people's lives, but often the last thing people Google. They'll Google and look up everything else. But we have this false sense of, because I did it, because I watched it done, I know what I'm doing. And the same thing with grief. People die every day. You have to die at some time. People say these things that really separate them from the emotions involved with a healthy grieving process. And people hide behind being strong. I don't know that they hide intentionally, but there's a belief that I'm supposed to be strong, which means not cry or show significant emotion. And from where I sit, being strong is being willing to express deep and heavy emotion, being willing to face it and work through it rather than have it be some big monster that you're constantly avoiding. But that's a new idea for most people. And unless you hear somebody say it, it really might not make sense or come to you naturally. Again, just because of culturally the way that we deal with things and how we've watched people deal with it doesn't mean they knew how to do it the best way either. It just means that that's what you're accustomed to. So there's a lot of information about grief, the stages of grief, emotions that are often associated with grief. So I would say getting informed. And if that's not working, that's not for you, set up a counseling session with somebody that can help you process grief. It doesn't always have to be, that you're in therapy for years, but just learning how to grieve in a healthy way that's, something that you personally connect with. Because a counselor really, there's a lot of information about how to cope out there. A counselor really is like having a personalized person to develop a program specific to you and your set of circumstances.
Well, good. What about that parent that's at home now? They have to cook, clean, wash, work,
care for their children. And really, it's too much. I mean, people might say, well, you can't manage your own picnic. Yes, I can manage my picnic, but in dosage, simply because I'm accustomed to being in my office, working or on the road or whatever the deal is. How can that person cope during that kind of stress?
Two things off the top of my head. One, you as the caregiver become the priority. So you come first. I hear people say this all the time. The most important thing to me is my kids. My kids come first. To me, I understand what people are trying to say, but in their execution of it, sometimes they miss out the most important person. If you as a parent are generally okay, your kids will generally be okay and get what they need from you. If you are depleted, stressed out, short-tempered, you could make sure they have on clean clothes and they have food, but have missed the point of connecting with your kids and allowing them to feel emotionally safe. They could wear clothes for 2-3 days and still turn out a better human being for being more connected with you than trying to keep up all of these things that you think you are supposed to be doing. So the first thing I would say is focus on self-care, developing a routine that helps you to feel rested as much as possible. It won't be perfect, but that if you're feeling stressed out, you have a way that you can deal with that and get back to a healthy place so that they get what they need from you. The second thing, lower your standards. If you used to wash twice a week, only wash once. If you're accustomed to doing things in a particular order and there's a faster, cheaper, easier way to get it done, do it. Lower your standards. If your house is perfectly clean all the time and you have to pick up every little thing as it happens, you know what? It won't be perfect all the time because now we're here 24/7. It's just unrealistic to think that you can maintain the same level of standards while you're worried about your income, worried about your kids in education, worried about what's going to happen next month, worried about getting sick. It's just not feasible. So lower your standards.
You have saved so many people's lives with that one sentence, including mine, because I think, gosh, I can't do all the things around here.
No, pick the things that are most important to you, that help you to feel calm and cared for. Do those things, and the rest of it, you'll get to it when you get to it.
Before we go, though, I think one of the things that I see a lot of people using as coping mechanism, and I'm not sure it's the best thing,
is they drink more because time is of no importance anymore because they don't have anywhere to be at 8 o'clock in the morning. So 8 o'clock and 8 o'clock in the night is the same 8 o'clock to them. This is a time when I think people not only use drugs and alcohol, but they start to abuse drugs and alcohol. So for somebody that's finding this, it might be happening inadvertently because you start to drink a beer at 8 o'clock in the morning. Oh, my friend lives in England, and so we have the same time, and whatever this online party is, we're having it. And so we find excuses to develop bad habits. Tell me better ways in which they can cope.
This is something that there isn't necessarily a one-size-fits-all answer. As you know, jogging can be dangerous for somebody that has certain pre-existing conditions. So it's not the act of drinking that is bad. It is not paying attention to how it's affecting you. If you're using it as an escape, so if the function of drinking is to avoid emotions or dealing with things, using alcohol as a coping mechanism, generally, if not early on a more long-term effect, can have some negative impacts on a person if you develop an unhealthy relationship between coping and alcohol. Because whenever you're sober, whatever you were avoiding is still there, and wherever you go with you. So if you develop a bad habit, it will follow you into whatever stressful situation that you end up in. So knowing whether or not something is healthy or unhealthy, the real trick is figuring out if doing this makes me feel better, but it adds to my problems, I don't care what it is, then it's generally unhealthy for you. If doing this makes me feel better and it's not adding to my problems, generally it can be in the healthy category. But there are times when even healthy coping styles over time can start to add to your problems and they become unhealthy. So it doesn't matter exactly what the coping mechanism is. What matters is the result we're getting. Is it working for you and is it adding to your problems, or is it okay or making things better?
I like that. We're going to take a break, but in the next segment, we're going to be doing a little role playing. So remember now, in the next segment, the issues that come up, they're not mine. It's simply role play so you can have a better understanding of how this system works. We're going to take a break and be back.
It's me, your Uncle Cooper, and this is a Cooper tire. Great tire. Now, it's not going to cook you a pot roast, but it will stop when you hit the brakes. And these truck tires can stop on average 10 feet shorter than other tires on a wet road. See, the trick is in the grip, and these tires grip like my handshake. Look, I'm your uncle. I love you. I want you to stop when you need to. Doesn't matter if it's for a red light or a duckling. So go with the Coopers. Cooper! And never start something you can't stop.
I choose Happy Cow cheese because of its perfect portion sizes, and I can travel with it.
Because it's nice and soft and creamy, and it goes smooth on your bread.
I choose Happy Cow cheese because I eat it with my beans. I eat it with my fried jack. And you know why? Because it's nice.
Most of all, when you're on the plane, you know they only give you some crackers and you could just take one out and enjoy it with Happy Cow cheese.
I'm Miss Baker, and I choose Happy Cow cheese because it goes well with all the stuff I bake.
Happy Cow cheese. Look for it in a store near you. Distributed in Belize exclusively by Emilio Ahmad and Sons Limited.
At NextGen, we work for you. Because despite you not being able to be together, we can keep you connected, united, talking to each other, seeing each other, communicating with each other. Stay connected with NextGen. NextGen, powered by Central TV and Internet.
I chose Galen because of its strong reputation, great scholarships.
I came because I can take all my classes online.
Because Galen University opens doors to the outside world.
Their course offering in tourism.
It gives you more opportunity to become who I want to be.
If you want to connect with your inner champion to make the world a better place, then Galen is right for you.
Me and my Marie shops in Inn Lake.
Me and my Marie Sharp in Indiana.
I'm in Rhonda Beach, California with my Marie Sharp.
Me and my Marie shops in Kabul, Afghanistan.
Me and my Marie shop that are Hertfordshire, England.
Me and my Marie Sharps in Taipei, Taiwan.
Marie Sharp, world-class products produced in Belize.
Welcome back to the third and final segment of Morning Matters. Mrs. Courtenay, welcome back.
Thank you.
In this segment now, we're going to role play a little so that people can have a better appreciation of how counseling works for the ones that may never have gone. So I'm going to read a question and then I will pretend that it's mine, and then the counselor will deal with me as if I am her patient. I feel that I might be having some mental health breakdown.
But because I am the breadwinner in my family and I don't want my wife to think that I am weak, I keep it as a secret. How can I share this with her?
Okay. one of the first things I would want to know is, what are you experiencing that makes you feel like you're having a mental breakdown? I would want to get more specific with the experience.
Then I will say to you, my patience is low. I can't sleep. I can't focus. I'm angry.
Okay. So then the next question generally would be, what do you anticipate your wife's response to be?
She will call me crazy.
She'll call you crazy?
Nobody wants to be called crazy.
That's very true. So then we kind of get into the pros and cons, right? If you don't tell her and you keep this a secret and you continue to suffer in silence, what are the potential outcomes of that? You know, if you then decide to tell your wife what you need to tell her, there are certain ways that we can prepare a person for that conversation. So if she does call you crazy, how are you going to respond to that? And then understanding that sometimes sharing something initially doesn't mean the other person automatically receives it or knows how to respond in the moment. But sometimes getting it out there means that we can have follow-up conversations that maybe encourage understanding over time, not necessarily the first time the information is presented.
I like it. But what if she says that maybe I'm just complacent and I'm lazy and I'm a man and I'm not supposed to have these emotions any at all?
Well, we can't control that, but it gives you some information about her value system, and it may mean that there are some deeper issues and not just your lack of coping skills at the moment or how you're feeling.
Well, that one was good. Let's try another one.
Okay.
We have a child who is about to enter college. My husband lost his job and my salary is the only salary that's maintaining the home. We have communicated this to our child and it has started to affect her in a negative way. What can we do?
It's starting to affect the child in a negative way, you said?
Yes.
Okay. I would ask a clarification question. You know, when you say a negative way, I would ask more about the specific behavior that they're observing.
She's not eating, she's not talking, she spends a lot of time in her room. Yeah.
Okay. One of the things too, I mean, there's a lot of different directions we could go with that, but one consideration is trying to help the parents understand a bit more her reaction to the news. Because a child who's preparing to go to college is looking forward to a lot. That's a big transition. Some people look towards it with anxiety and fear. Other people look towards it with excitement. You know, I'm on my road to independence, getting that education so I can get a good job, which right now seems to not be as certain. And so fear, you know, about if I can't go now, will I ever be able to go? So I would try to encourage a compassionate, understanding response from the parents that a child hearing this may not be happy about that. And even if they understand why it has to be that way, it doesn't mean that they aren't still devastated or disappointed or even grieving what they thought their future would be. And so while it makes the parents feel bad sometimes to watch their children suffer these things, and some parents, I think, in that position would feel really, really bad for not being able to give their child that opportunity, that they're both experiencing the same situation, but from different angles, and to try and help them to, I guess, own their own position, but be compassionate and understanding the other person's emotional response is quite valid too. And we don't need to change it. We just need to be patient with it.
Good. This one says, I'm an elderly person and I live alone. My child used to come and bring my groceries and make sure that I have everything. They still do that. However, I have no physical contact. I don't see my grandchildren anymore. I can't go to the casinos. I can't go out and walk anymore. I am experiencing what I would term as depression. How can I cope?
Right. Again, there's a lot more information I would want to get in terms of what the person has access, what they have access to. And again, in this position, it's really important for people to be very realistic with what they control and what they don't control. Not being able to go to the casino, yes, I experience a shift in perhaps my social engagement and my sense of purpose for the day or activity, feeling independent. Most elderly people struggle with maintaining their sense of independence, the ability to move freely, the ability to kind of do what they want, make their own decisions still, even though they're getting up there in age. So the reduction in all of that movement means that someone has to kind of be a little bit more flexible with how they engage and socialize or get their needs met. One of the difficulties I'm seeing right now is most people are trying to still do things the same way that they used to. And they're fighting to keep things the same. And a real mental and emotional strength is the ability to be flexible. Now, that doesn't come naturally to everybody. And age certainly doesn't present flexibility. Generally, there's a large dependence on routine and things that are steady. So that may be quite disturbing for someone in that position. And so we would start by validating it, just allowing it to be uncomfortable and unpleasant, and then begin to explore what opportunities there may be to do it differently than before.
All right, I think those are good examples. I think that the people have an understanding now of how it works, that there is not a prescription that will suit everybody. There has to be conversation.
Generally, how much counseling does somebody need before they see progress?
That, again, there's no standard answer. When I engage with clients for the first time, I typically tell people to expect to come weekly for at least the first 8 to 10 weeks. And it is important whenever you're exploring behaviors and emotions and change related to those, that the consistent approach generally sees benefits much faster. So someone that can attend every week as opposed to every 2 weeks. It's a lot harder to make progress when you have longer periods of time between sessions, because you do tend to kind of fall back on what's most familiar to you, even if it's not working. It's what I know to do. And so to keep up learning, it's really important that we do amounts of work that are manageable. And so we meet once a week because that's manageable. We can have a conversation for a certain period of time. We don't take on too much, but it's enough for you to have something to work on for the next week. But it is important that you're consistent with it. So I would say at least 8 to 10 weeks before you start to understand better what the process is doing for you, where your areas of difficulty are, and have a sense that we're heading towards something. But again, it just depends on how severe the issues are and what the treatment goals are that determine whether somebody needs 6 months worth of treatment, 5 sessions, or some people years, because it becomes part of their self-care system.
It's quite unfortunate that a lot of the people that need this kind of help are unable to afford it. They're unwilling to accept that. But I also recognize that, especially during this time, while it is intense, I use the word intense, that technology has been kind to us, because now I don't have to leave my house to go to your office. We can have a session just like this, and it would possibly cost me less. So let's talk about those options.
Sure. Again, it's very personal to each therapist and each person how comfortable they are engaging like this. But again, given the situation that we're in, I tend to work very well online. A little better with people that I have a previous rapport with, and we sort of shift from in-person sessions to online. But to get to know someone via an online medium can be a little sketchy at first or choppy. But with persistence and an open mind, it can definitely present opportunities where if we're restricted, we can't meet at all. And so certainly in these situations, something is better than nothing. So our counseling center does offer online sessions, and we use a variety of platforms to make it very easy for our clients to access whatever medium they have access to. So we're very flexible with that. We're offering right now people that are just curious if they need to engage a little bit further, or they just want to check in on how they're doing, get some quick tips, quick guidance or direction, like a mental health check-in. And so we meet with people online for 30 minutes. We try to get a quick assessment of what's going on and give you at least some direction. So we won't be solving deep psychological trauma or issues or addressing major patterns, but it may be something that helps you just to feel a little more confident in the direction that you're going and how to get access to more information so that you can sustain yourself for as long as you can. And if in truth that is not working, you can reach out for more consistent or a different level of treatment.
I like that, because some people need to have the experience to just to see how it works. I want to try out. I want a freebie, or I don't know if it's a free.
For sure. Sorry?
Is it free? How much does it cost? The tryout.
Right now, it's not free. It's $40 for the half an hour. And then, on a case-by-case basis, we are able to assist in some areas. But worse, if we're not able to assist, we do have a wider knowledge of resources that we can help direct you to somebody who can meet your needs at your level. I
have to say, this has been quite refreshing. I think that you have done justice to this conversation. I say thank you. But before we go, this is Mental Health Month.
Yes.
This is what we should be focusing on mostly this month. Any message you'd like to leave us with?
I think, if anything, it is recognizing that getting more information about anything and asking for help is a very human and mature thing to do. I mean, one of the things that they rate you on in your primary school report card, when you're in preschool or pre-kinder into kinder, is, can the child ask for help? Because it's one of the first coping mechanisms that we develop as human beings, is being able to say, I can't do this, I need help. I don't know this, where is this? Rather than sit and suffer in silence. And so what I would leave with people is that if you feel uncomfortable, if there's a topic that's weighing you down on a daily basis, if your sleep is interrupted, if you really just have a feeling of not feeling yourself or not feeling well, ask for help. And I mean, you kind of have a feel of somebody that you may or may not be able to ask. And even if you ask and you discover that you asked the wrong person, that getting your answers and getting help is more important sometimes than the embarrassment you might feel about asking the wrong person. At the end of the day, it's you who needs the help, and encouraging people to be brave about asking for that.
Thank you so much. Where can people find you or people like you?
Yes. There's a couple resources that I'll give you. One, our website is www.monarchbelize.com. We are now operating under Monarch Counseling and Consulting. And we have a few therapists on staff, so you can have your choice, whoever you think you might feel most comfortable with. So you can visit our website and see the counselor profiles, get more information about how the services work, and to contact us. And there's also I am on the board as well with Mind Health Connect. And I know you all heard a lot about them yesterday, in particular, the Wear Green campaign. And so www.mindhealthconnect.com seeks to be a location where you can find out who's providing mental health and wellness services throughout the country, both private, which would mean, private pay or may accept certain insurances, or public, because each one of the districts also has a community rehabilitation center with counselors on staff, and those are free services as well.
Thank you so much. I know that you must have someplace else to go, so I will not keep you any longer. Again, I say thank you for stopping and sharing with us this morning.
It is my pleasure, and thank you so much for providing the platform.
Thanks. Have a good day.